Come over here, have a look at this. What a view. Right down over the heart of Monaco. And it was down there that Fernando Alonso finished second in the Grand Prix. 6 races so far this year, and he has been on the podium 5 times. Aston Martin is currently Red Bull's biggest threat.
Formula One is the pinnacle of racing, but apart from the Valkyrie, the road cars don't reflect that. Aston Martin is still a GT brand, not a supercar marque. Yes, the mid-engine Valhalla is in development, but the V6 hybrid Vanquish that was meant to do battle with the Ferrari 296 and McLaren 750S is dead, a victim of cost-cutting and reality checks. Which means the big front-engine stuff needs to do more heavy lifting. So how do you bridge the gap? Not alienate your existing GT customers, but bring in new supercar buyers.
By inventing a new category. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the car Aston Martin is billing as the world's first super tourer, the DB12. And what you're thinking is, it doesn't look very different from a DB11. And underneath, that's largely what it still is. But let's deal with the surface stuff first, because yeah, it has got quite a bit more stance and attitude than a DB11. It leans towards the sort of brutish muscularity of the DBS, maybe with a crisper edge here and there. But no, it's hardly revolutionary for a car that claims to be inventing a whole new category. But Aston Martin couldn't replace the DB11 entirely. It had only been on sale for 7 years. They needed it to work a bit harder for a bit longer, so this was the compromise, a thorough overhaul. But the headline is what's not there anymore. The V12 is dead. Emissions finally caught up with it. And here's what else you're not seeing under the bonnet: a hybrid or any form of electrical assistance. What you're looking at is a Mercedes-sourced 4-litre V8 twin-turbo. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that engine was in the old DB11, where it developed 528 horsepower. But with no 630 horsepower twin-turbo V12 anymore, Aston needed more from the V8.
And it's got it. Modified camshafts, overhaul cooling, plus naturally bigger turbos have seen the V8 gain over 150 horsepower and torque leap by 34%.
And that's a massive step. 671 horsepower and 590 pounds-foot of torque. And that means a few things. Firstly, speed. 0 to 62 takes 3.6 seconds. Top speed is 202 miles an hour. It also means everything else has to cope. The bonded aluminium chassis has more bracing, which has increased torsional rigidity by 7%. The track widths have been increased 6mm at the front, a more substantial 22 at the rear. And that's helped the new 21-inch wheels pack out the arches better. Those wheels, incidentally, wear Michelin's brand new Pilot Sport 5S tyres and conceal 400mm front brakes. This car optionally has the carbon ceramics, which save 27 kilos from the unsprung weight. Quick point on spec though, bronze wheels and green paint. I think this looks terrific.
The 8-speed auto has a shorter final drive. There's an E-diff, the adaptive dampers are new and have far more bandwidth, and in a possible quest to mimic a mid-engined handling balance, the weight distribution has shifted rearwards. Beyond that, the promise is that the calibration and precision of everything has been transformed, that this is now a genuinely rewarding car on a good road.
You get that impression from the cabin. I know the bodywork is mostly familiar, but in here it is transformed. Everything, almost, is different. And nothing is more important in that than the fact Aston has done away with the old Mercedes screens and developed its own in-house touchscreen. And look, it's responsive and it works quickly and it has 30 millisecond reaction times. This is a world away from what's gone before. This car doesn't have them, but you can now have the DB12 with a real bucket seats, more thinly padded with sharper bolsters. But actually these seats are really nice, and the driving position is spot on. I feel like I've got a bit more openness. I can see out better than I could in the DB11. It's a very convincing interior, this. But look, Aston isn't abandoning the Grand Tourer ground completely. There are still rear seats, even if they're not particularly human-sized. And there's a boot, even if the lid doesn't open that high, and the boot's not actually that big. It does still, however, include the old air channel mechanism from the DB11. But that's about the same as its rivals, and yes, this car does have some of those. I know Aston says this is the world's first Super Tourer, but actually that's a tag that's been applied once or twice before to cars that bridge the GT supercar divide. Cars such as the Porsche 911 Turbo and Ferrari Roma. And that's the ballpark this car's going to be operating in. Prices are expected to start at about 185,000 quid when deliveries start this autumn. But let's hope some of the magic has rubbed off and that the DB12 can bask in the reflected glory of Aston's F1 success.